For 72 seconds, a machine in a field in Ohio heard something 30 times louder than the noise of the universe. Then it stopped. It has never happened again. Not the next night. Not the next year. Not once in almost 50 years since. You're about to hear the story of the only signal from deep space that science still cannot explain. It was August 15th, 1977. A radio telescope called Big Ear, run by Ohio State University, sat on land near Ohio Wesleyan University's campus, listening to the sky. It was not glamorous. It was a flat metal reflector the length of 3 football fields, built largely by university staff and volunteers. Its job was simple: point at the stars. Listen for a whisper that might mean we are not alone. A few days after that August night, a volunteer named Jerry Ehman sat down with a stack of paper printouts, green and white, fed line by line from a machine that never slept. He had done this 1,000 times before. Numbers and letters, mostly noise, occasionally a flicker worth a second look. Then he saw it. A sequence in the second channel of the printout. 6 characters. 6 EQUJ 5. To anyone else, meaningless. To Ehman, extraordinary. Each character represented signal strength, and this one climbed higher than anything the telescope had ever recorded. 30 times stronger than the background hum of space. He grabbed a red pen. He circled it. He wrote one word in the margin, almost without thinking. Wow. That single word became the name of the most famous unexplained signal in the history of radio astronomy. Why does one scribbled word from a tired volunteer still matter almost 50 years later? Because of what the signal looked like and where it came from. The signal arrived at a frequency of 1,420 megahertz. This is not a random number. It sits almost exactly on what astronomers call the hydrogen line, the natural frequency at which hydrogen atoms emit radiation across the galaxy. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. Any civilization trying to reach across the stars would likely know this frequency too, and might choose it as a kind of cosmic common language. A frequency any listener, anywhere, would think to check. The signal lasted 72 seconds, which sounds arbitrary until you understand why. Big Ear could not track a single point in the sky. It stayed still while the Earth turned beneath it. 72 seconds is exactly how long a fixed point on the sky takes to drift through Big Ear's field of view. In other words, the signal did not last 72 seconds because it was fleeting. It lasted 72 seconds because that is how long the telescope was physically capable of listening to any one point before the sky moved on. For all anyone knows, whatever produced it could have been broadcasting for hours or years. We simply do not know because our telescope blinked. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, toward the center of our galaxy, in a region dense with stars. And here is the detail that keeps scientists awake. Big Ear actually had 2 receiving horns, which should have picked up any real signal twice, moments apart, as the sky drifted through each one. Only one horn recorded it. The pattern was strange enough that some researchers spent years trying to explain that alone. So what was it? Nobody knows. But not for lack of trying. Robert Gray, an independent researcher, spent the 1990s and 2000s pointing some of the most sensitive instruments on Earth at that same patch of sky. He used the Very Large Array in New Mexico. He tried again with other observatories. Later, the Allen Telescope Array in California, built partly to hunt for exactly this kind of repeat signal, searched the same coordinates. Every search came back the same way. Nothing. Silence, where 72 seconds of something had once burned through the noise. A genuine astrophysical source, like a pulsar or a flaring star, tends to repeat. It has a rhythm. A transmission from a civilization, if it wanted to be found, might repeat too. Interference from Earth usually leaves fingerprints. It shows up on other frequencies, or at predictable times, or from equipment we can trace. The WOW signal did none of these things. It appeared once with no warning and vanished completely. For 20 more years after 1977, Big Ear kept listening, run largely by volunteers. becoming the longest continuously operating SETI program in history. Then, in 1998, the telescope was demolished, not because of any discovery, because the land it sat on was needed for a golf course expansion. One of the most significant listening posts in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence was taken apart to make room for a fairway. In 2017, 40 years after the signal, an astronomer named Antonio Paris proposed an answer that made headlines everywhere. He suggested the source was mundane, a comet, specifically Comet 266P/Christensen, which happened to be passing through roughly the right part of the sky. Paris argued that hydrogen gas surrounding a comet, warmed as it approached the Sun, could emit radiation near that same 1,420 MHz frequency. He built a 10-meter radio telescope specifically to test the idea, and over 200 observations, he detected a signal from the comet at a similar frequency. It seemed for a moment like the mystery was finally solved. Then other scientists looked closely. Jerry Ehman himself, the man who found the original signal, said publicly that he did not believe comets could explain it. Astronomers pointed out that comets had never been observed emitting radio waves at that frequency before, and that Christensen's position did not actually align precisely enough with where the 1977 signal originated. Some noted that if comets really produced signals like this, we should be picking up similar bursts constantly, not once in 50 years. The comet explanation, celebrated for a news cycle, quietly fell apart under scrutiny. So we are back where we started. A single word in red ink. A printout that still exists today, preserved in an Ohio archive, the ink slightly faded but still legible. And a question nobody has been able to close. Here is what makes this different from most stories about the search for alien life. This is not speculation about ancient astronauts or vague claims from unnamed scientists. This is a documented, time-stamped, physically recorded event, examined for decades by real researchers with real telescopes, and it remains open. Not because we stopped looking, because we looked carefully for almost 50 years and never found an answer that fully fit. Think about what that means for a moment. In your lifetime, humanity has pointed some of its most powerful listening instruments at one patch of sky in the constellation Sagittarius, hoping to hear an echo of something that happened decades before you were born. And the sky has stayed quiet every single time. Maybe it really was a comet, behaving in a way we have simply never observed before or since. Maybe it was a rare astrophysical event with no name yet. Or maybe, just once, for 72 seconds, something out there was transmitting, and the universe happened to be listening in exactly the right place, for exactly the wrong amount of time. We caught 72 seconds of something the universe has never repeated. And somewhere above you tonight, in that same direction, in that same silence, it might still be out there, waiting for someone to be listening again.